now in a more figurative way about the future vision that we want for the U.S. role in the world. And one of the really compelling ideas that the authors of the U.S. in the World guide that you have, that they came up with to kind of frame this way of thinking about the future of the U.S. role in the world, is to have you all think about what you would put into a dream speech for the State of the Union in 2009. And the reason that they chose that idea was because they wanted to get you thinking, what is the next kind of vision for U.S. foreign policy going to be? And they also wanted you to frame it in a way that was pragmatic enough to realistically think that these ideas could actually be in, a high-profile speech before the nation like the State of the Union. And so it's great because the State of the Union is aimed at being visionary, and one of the goals is to really think creatively about kind of the future, and at the same time it's also aimed at being politically feasible. And what the authors are trying to do is to get you thinking about how you put that together. So what they did is they consulted with a speechwriter who was one of the people that worked a lot on public State of the Union addresses, to talk with her about what exactly are the ingredients of a speech like the State of the Union. And essentially they created a little guide that I'm going to walk you through. How many people can see or read what's on the screen up there? Okay, so a few of you. So we also have in each row the text that might be useful for you all to share as we go through this. Essentially, they put together a kit that is aimed at giving you the tools to go through the speech and come up with the ideas that are behind it. And one thing that they really want to emphasize is that the goal of the project is not for you to think about so much the exact policy issues, but much like a State of the Union, to think more about the type or the kind of model for how the U.S. should interact with the world, and so to draw on a lot of your own kind of examples in that process. Let me start by reading you the winner of the Dream Speech competition that we actually held as an organization for students about 4 months ago. And the winner is actually now a columnist for a magazine that some of you may be familiar with called The Internationalist, which is a really cool global magazine that's on a lot of college campuses that is creating a new dialogue about these efforts. And his name is Derek Thompson. He's a leader at our group at Northwestern University. And I'll just read you a small snippet to give you a sense of the type of dream that we're hoping you can create according to your own values and vision. It is customary on this day, I speak on the current state of our union. But today I find myself compelled to step back from domestic considerations and speak on the future state of our world. My fellow Americans, we are heirs of a simple dream, one that sought nothing less than the liberty for all mankind. For the past 8 years, your government has used that dream to peddle a dangerous fantasy that greatness could be declared rather than earned, that power divorced from wisdom is the same as courage, and that America could save the world with smart bombs without a smart, comprehensive foreign policy. Today we reclaim that tradition so recently betrayed. I announce a bold new approach towards the world's most challenging regions, China, Africa, and the Middle East. In China, the United States must recognize a partnership where many insist on seeing an enemy. We are witnessing the dawning of a new age of competition where America's monopoly on world power ends, and a new shared leadership begins. We should engage China in regional security and encourage Beijing to play a stabilizing watchdog role as Asia undergoes a dynamic transformation. That mission begins in Africa as well, where the United States has a chance to move U.S. power through aid packages and not just missile silos. But aid alone will not save Africa. Disease, poverty, and corruption, these ills threefold flow through a common body politic, infecting and exacerbating each other. All three must be defeated to lift the continent out of its malaise. And then he goes on. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read the ending. The greatest threat the United States faces is Iran's persistent attempts to develop a nuclear weapon. Consistent with our vision of peaceful economic integration, Any incentive package offered to Iran must include full membership in the World Trade Organization, open access to multiple channels of international investment, and a permanent place in the network of nations. But let us be clear, the United States will never accept the nuclear terrorist threat, and we should exhaust every peaceful alternative. We will meet terror with the full weight of American power. We are not our forefathers. We have grown and wrestled with the conscience of their simple dream. Yet as we inherit and uphold the torch of generations, we rededicate ourselves to a new pledge for a new age. Plur pluribus unum, one nation, for the power of others and peace for all. Our founding dream, it lives, the world looks on, and the torch still burns for all those who believe in its light. And it was aimed at trying to create a kind of new vision. You heard some big ideas, you heard some specific policy statements. It can be a bit intimidating to hear something like that when you're not a writer like he is. But one of the things that we're going to be doing is going through each of the pieces of a dream speech, and then you guys will be kind of taking stock on each level, and we'll hopefully have some of you take these pieces that we're developing now, and then maybe sit down and write the dream speech in its full form. Okay, so let's get started. The first part of any great speech, including a dream speech, is the introduction. And the introduction should set the stage with core themes that tell your audience how you see the world and our place in it. And if you can't see this, what they tell you to do is stop and think. And here are the big questions that they want you to think about. Where are you headed with your dream project? Have you set the stage in a way that's consistent with the conclusions you ultimately want to draw your audience to? Have you invited your audience into your dream, or shut them out by being too narrow, negative, or wonky right at the start? So, we want you to begin thinking about your potential introduction, and let me just give you a couple of quick examples that may create ideas in your mind about what you could use to introduce your dream speech. So there are a couple of core themes that they find really useful. The first is, what are your most basic concerns about our future? Security and war, jobs and the economy, values and way of life. And they give you some examples from daily life. We depend on computer chips whose core ingredients come from Africa, on cooperation to stop terrorists in Europe or Asia, on food inspectors in the countries from which we buy fruits and vegetables. A few different types of examples that kind of showcase collaboration. Another thing that you may want to highlight is a foreign policy that links our actions abroad to success at home. For example, calling on our founders, when George Washington gave the first State of the Union address, he spent much of the time talking about foreign affairs. Our foreign policy should reflect the best instincts of the American people, common sense and common destiny, as well as a deeper understanding of the needs and aspirations of other societies around the world. Maybe that's a theme that you want to kind of push on. Or maybe there's another theme that you want to kind of start out with. And the final piece that they offer in terms of advice is that a wide range of kind of focus groups that went into the U.S. and the World Guide found that making U.S. policy abroad responsible and effective starts with recognizing, as you know from earlier, how interconnected our world is. So they suggest that drawing on those things can be really helpful. So we'll take like a 5-minute break now. You have your worksheets in front of you. What you want to start out with is some type of kind of introductory set of ideas that set the stage. And when you guys share your examples in a moment, we're going to ask you to be unusually energetic and, if possible, photogenic. The reason is that you are the first of our Dream Speech pilot workshops, and this is actually being filmed, as you know from signing your release, for the Dream Speech project. And we want to show the excitement that people feel when they're engaged in this type of work. So when we come back and you guys share your examples, you may even want to think about ways that you can, use vivid hand gestures and things like that to really, like a real State of the Union would, to get that across. Okay, so 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what crazy things you guys can do.